Hello, I'm Pastor Matt Verhoeg, and today we're going to look at Luke chapter 22, verses 1 to 6, as always, in 3 minutes. Now, the stage is set for Jesus' final week. I know, not exactly his final week, but you know what I mean. It's the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Passover. But Jesus' enemies are not celebrating. They are scheming ways to put him to death, away from the watchful eye of the crowds that love him. Then we have the dramatic verse 3. Then Satan entered into Judas, called Iscariot, who was one of the number of the 12. Judas leaves the Lord Jesus and cuts a deal with the chief priests. For 30 pieces of silver, he would betray the Lord. Now, the fact that Satan enters into Judas here does and should frighten us. But I want to give you 3 notes here to encourage and to warn you in light of this passage. The first thing, and most importantly, Judas, susceptible to Satan because he did not believe that Jesus was the Messiah. Now, if you want to be protected from Satan's power, you need to trust the greater power of the Lord Jesus, so that you may know the promise, he who is in you is greater than he who is in the world. Second, here we can see Satan and how he most often works in the world. Now, people think of Satan causing spooky and weird phenomenon, but Judas doesn't get glowing eyes and a spinning head. All that happens is that the insanity of his sin is cranked up just a few notches. Judas is susceptible to Satan's suggestions because his heart already loves money more than following God. Judas's greed has caused him to steal from the disciples' common funds, and now his greed, inflamed by Satan, causes him to betray the Lord of life. Now, I've never done drugs, but I've heard, often in reports of deaths, that sometimes drugs are cut by unscrupulous dealers with dangerous substances. Now, the sin of greed may not seem like such a big deal, but all sin can be deadly because sometimes the dealer is the Lord of darkness. Sometimes sin can just seem so harmless, but one day it may, under Satan's direction, cause death. Now, this is a warning to all who would dabble in sin. Remember, sometimes the dealer may be Satan himself. The third thing to note in this text is that everyone is so happy. And they were glad and agreed to give him money. The word glad is most readily translated. They rejoiced. They rejoiced. Now, they weren't miserable following Satan. They were merely skipping along. Temporary joy is no guarantee that your actions are good. Many follow Satan with a smile, but for those in league with hell, there will be hell to pay. In the end, we can look at this passage and take comfort if we are fleeing from sin. For those who trust in the Lord Jesus Christ, Satan has no power over them. And always remember the promise, resist the devil and he will flee